that night I sat down with just her and I says, darling, I says, I don't feel like I could be happy going forward with what they're asking me to do. I says, I feel like it would be best for me to live my life the best I can. I says, I don't know what that looks like. I says, but I want you to be a part of that. I says, but I'll respect whatever you choose. If you feel like your family's here or your salvation, I understand. Mm-hmm. And she just says, I just want to be together as a family.
Yeah.
And then she looked down and she looked back up at me and she says, do you think we can be happy outside of the church? I don't know. And so we just started to transition and adjust from there. I tell people now it's been 12 years. We're just trying to live positive and show people there's life after Jeff's.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the 435 podcast. I'm your host, Robert McFarland. With me today, Jeff Watkins on the mic.
Hello.
Hey, guys. You're in for a treat today. If you're familiar with the FLDS church, if you're familiar with the Netflix documentary, Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey, you're going to really be interested in today's episode. Chris Wyler, he's a visionary developer behind Pecan Valley Resort. It's a resort here in Hurricane, Utah, just west of Sand Hollow Resort. It's amazing, but the story that we get into of his life and what's led him to where he's at is what's really going to be interesting to you guys. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you click, like, subscribe, share with your friends to support this, to keep us rolling. Please check out our sponsors in the description below and enjoy the episode, guys. We'll see you out there. So you just came back from Thailand.
We did. Yeah, we got back on the 2nd, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, just you were there for a couple weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
oh
3
man.
weeks.
I went for 10 days and it wasn't enough.
Where did you go in Thailand?
We Chiang Mai. So we flew into Bangkok, we went to Chiang Mai, and then we flew down south, and then we went to I think Koh Phi Phi for a day, and then we went to Koh Phi Phi. And so we just spent a few days out on the island, and then we spent 2 days in Bangkok before we left. So just the 2 days in Bangkok, but it's a Western city. You know what I mean?
It totally feels like it, right?
It does, yeah, for sure. But where'd you go?
So we flew into Bangkok, kind of rested from that 26 hour trip.
It's a long one.
And then we flew down to Krabi, which is down south by Koh Phi Phi and Four Island. And so we did those tours, stayed at some fabulous resorts.
Yeah.
And had a great time. Went down there with my 4 kids and my wife.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was just paradise.
Did you guys plan it out where you hit, like, there was these resorts that you for sure had already wanted to go to, or did you kind of figure it out as you went?
So my friend served a mission over there. And he also has a factory where he makes suits. And
nice.
so he's just...
If you want a suit, Thailand is a place to go, I hear.
Seriously. And I was thinking about getting one. He's like, dude, just let me know. I'll hook you up. So he lives here locally and he can
That's
get
cool.
us taken care of.
I'm going to hit you up for that. I need to get some suits. We're going to suit up Jeff. Jeff's on too. Jeff, we're going to suit up.
Dude, let's do it.
I'm ready. I actually would not mind a new suit.
Or 2. Or 3.
Yeah, a couple. Mm-hmm.
So he kind of gave us, he says, these are the highlights that you want to go to. And he says, you can just book your trips from there.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And it was great. We stayed at a resort down there by Ao Nang Beach, there in Krabi.
Yeah.
And there's a property called Grand Centaur. Or Centaur Grand, that's what it is. You have to take a boat to get out to it.
Yeah.
And it's just this beautiful 5-star property that's nestled in the limestone cliffs.
Oh, wow.
And so it's so secluded and amazing. And as we booked our tours, and the boats would come pick us up from there. And so Four Island wasn't very far from Ao Nang Beach. And so we did a long-tail boat that day. And when we did our Phi Phi Island tour, then we did a motorboat from there. Or speedboat, they call it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was incredible.
Yeah, Koh Phi Phi and Phi Phi, because there's 2, I think there's 2 islands basically, but I think the beach with Leonardo DiCaprio was filmed there. It is insane.
Dude, it was
beautiful.
wild going in there, wasn't it? The traffic was insane.
It was packed
so
too.
beautiful.
We went this would have been 2017. I think it was 2017.
Yeah, so pre-COVID then.
Pre-COVID, but it was still busy. Yeah, there's a ton of people on that beach. The beach where the movie was shot, but the just Koh Phi Phi, like the main island, it's all like a walking island, and then there's like this two mountains, and then there's this like kind of flat area in between, and it's just all these basically like buildings and shacks that are all connected, and it's like this walking street. So like the restaurant will like turn into like a bazaar that'll turn into like something else. Everything like is all fluid. It's not really, there's no like distinguished like buildings from one thing to another. It was crazy. There's cats and monkeys and just animals walking with everybody else, and it was crazy.
Dude,
So
it's
much fun.
rad, right? Like we
So
had
rad.
such a good time,
Yeah.
and 3 of our kids couldn't go with us, and so they want to go back. So we'll see if we can't schedule.
So you have
another
7?
trip.
You have 7 kids?
7 kids.
Whoa,
Yeah,
dude.
they're all getting grown up.
Can I come
It's
with you,
crazy.
Chris? I feel like a loser over here. I haven't been to Thailand.
Dude, let's go.
Sweet.
Yeah, man, Thailand.
Sweet.
We for sure want to go back. That was my wife and I's honeymoon. Is when we went to Thailand.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. So you just did the islands.
No, we did the islands, spent about a week down there, maybe a little bit more, it seems like. Then we flew up to Chiang Mai and spent a little over a week up there. And then we came back to Bangkok,
Did you see the
got
elephants?
there for a weekend market, loaded up on stuff and came home.
Nice.
And yeah, Chiang Mai was amazing. So we went out to Sib San, which is this beautiful little resort that's out in the mountains right next to the elephant sanctuaries.
Yeah.
And so it was just amazing to stay at that property. And the time of year we went was just starting to be rainy season. So there wasn't hardly anybody around. It was so nice.
Did it rain a ton or not?
Not obnoxiously. You know,
Yeah.
it did every once in a while, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
then we did the elephant thing. You know, you see the kings up there riding the elephants.
Yeah.
And I thought that'd be cool, but getting up there in that basket, dude, that was rough.
It's rough. It's rough, and they're not soft too. So it's like sandpaper, like their hair. So like even like holding on, we were up on a basket, but we rode. My wife and I rode, and I think it was climbing. Was it climbing up? Because we weren't in a full basket at one point. We did like a short walk outside of the like riding them without the basket, and they're just so rough. And then they dropped us off in this pool, like how you got off. It was
No way,
They like
really?
walked into the water, and then you get out of the pool, and these guys are laughing, and they're like splashing us with water, like, "Oh, it's so much fun!" And there's just elephant poop just floating everywhere, and I'm like, "We're just in a big puddle of poop. Like, we got to get out of here." They were like laughing, and I was like, "Katie, we got to get out of this pool. I don't want to be in this pool anymore."
It's sewer
They were all
ponds,
laughing.
man.
It's a sewer pond. It was a sewer pond. I was like, "Oh, this is gross." But the elephants, they're amazing. They're amazing. They eat so much food, and so, man, like having a sanctuary and seeing how big of an area they really need, it's pretty crazy. It's a definitely a monumental task in protecting elephants, that's for sure. But it's a big business.
Dude, I loved it. I highly recommend going.
Yeah. So, was the favorite the islands or the mountains?
You know, everything was amazing. You know,
Yeah.
it was all new to me everywhere
Yeah.
we went, so it was just awesome. It surprised me how weird it was for my brain to switch to the left side of the road.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because they just drive pretty wild over there.
Yeah. And
So we rented little
tuk-tuks.
scooters, and I'm just cruising down on the left side of the road, and there's somebody coming towards me in my lane, and so I question myself if I'm on the right side of the road.
But there's
The
no rules.
proper side of the road, let's say that, so it's not confusing.
Yeah. Right.
And so then they turn, and it's like, oh, good, I'm not gonna, I'm on the proper side of the road.
Yeah, Katie and I, we were talking about how there's really no rules. There's no like lanes. There's no, you can go when if it's a stop sign or a light or whatever it is. People are just going. It's not like
Noticed, yeah.
it's just chaos, and everybody's driving everywhere. There's motorcycles and big trucks, and it's wild out there. One of the tuk-tuk drivers, I was like, "You saved our life. Like if it wasn't for you, we would have died." Like it was crazy.
And with everything being new like that, the whole experience was amazing.
How was
know,
your kids? How did your kids feel about it?
They loved it.
Yeah.
Man, it was just such a great experience. They would have stayed longer.
Are they pretty adventurous?
Seems like it.
Yeah. They probably get that from you. Is your wife pretty adventurous as well?
Yeah, we get around, man. We've had some good times. We've been married for 30 years now.
Wow. That's awesome,
and
man.
So I'm 46. So that means we got married. I was 16. She was 17.
Way to go, man. That's lifelong commitment right there. That's a young age to make the decision. Jeff, you were pretty young when you met your wife too, right?
I for sure was not 16.
But
Yeah, I was 20, 21.
20.
But no, my wife and I met in driver's ed. So yeah, we were 16.
When you guys met, yeah.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
It's so fun to have that history.
Yeah.
And see, my wife and I were both born in the FLDS.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to a private school up in Little Cottonwood Canyon in Salt Lake
Oh, okay.
that was Rulon Jeff's home.
Oh, okay.
So Warren Jeffs was our principal.
Really?
And so, yeah, it was kind of cool.
It's kind of cool. Kind of cool. So did are you still part of the FLDS church?
I'm not. At the end of 2011,
Uh-huh.
then Warren Jeffs had a revelation that he sent from prison that said that the only people that could remain in the church were those that qualified for the Holy United Order. And that Lyle Jeffs and his 2 counselors were to judge the Short Creek Stake of Zion.
Wow, okay.
And so maybe we could even get into that whole story, what happened and how they let us know we weren't members and where we went from there.
I want to know.
But as kids, we were kind of like the bishop's kids.
Yeah.
And so it was a week before my 15th birthday. Then I snuck out and I went up to a party because my brother had like a bunch of lost boys that worked for him, and he had apostatized from the church.
And for people not listening, what's a lost boy?
A lost boy is kind of a young man that isn't complying with the rules. And so he has to move away from his family.
In the community, right?
And so sometimes they'll end up in a foster home. They'll end up with other siblings. They'll end up just with somebody that might have been a former member.
Yeah.
And so there was this house that was full of these lost boys. It was just a party house.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how I knew about this party. I can't remember, but I remember that I ended up there.
Yeah.
And as what was super cool is it was the first time my wife had snuck out as well, and she was there.
Yeah. So that was the beginning.
That was the beginning. We ended up kissing that night.
Yeah.
And dude, I had to see this girl again.
Yeah. That's so awesome, man.
And so we started sneaking out. And for about a year, we'd just try to get out on the weekends and see each other and get back home before people woke up.
Yeah.
And so in that process, then I would go out and pick her up. I'd borrow my parents' car.
Yeah.
Go pick her up from Riverton.
You're borrowing it. I'll bring it back, I promise.
Right. Yeah. And then in that, then her brother, that's about our same age, but he's from the other mom.
Uh-huh.
Then he wondered if we would take him to his girlfriend's house. And so we would drop him off. We'd hang out, and then we'd go pick him up.
So you got a whole scheme going here.
But he ended up getting his girlfriend pregnant.
Oh, no.
And so they ratted us out.
Oh.
And so I'd already, after 7th grade,
yeah,
then I was invited to not come back to school there.
Okay.
And so I was kind of already isolated from the community, so I didn't feel the pressure that my girlfriend felt or my wife.
Yeah.
And so after she had gotten so much trouble, she had to go see Warren and Rulon, and her parents were so disappointed with her. She called me up and she's just like, "Hey, with everything that's going on," she says, we need to give it a break.
Yeah.
She says, let me finish up school and we'll see where it goes from there. Mm-hmm. But I talked her into going out with me once more.
Yeah.
And so I waited till my parents went to sleep, borrowed their car, went and picked her up, and then brought her back to my parents' house. Mm-hmm. And so we were there in my bedroom, just talking.
Just talking.
And then there's a knock on the door.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, get in the closet. So she gets in the closet, and I get up and I open up the door. And my mom comes walking in, turns on the light. She goes over to the closet, opens up the closet, and she's like, "Lydia," she says, "get your stuff." She says, "I'll take you home." So my wife picks up her stuff, and she says, "Nope." She says, "I'll just fucking walk." And she climbed out the window.
Oh, my gosh.
And so
Dang.
So I was like, "See you, Mom." So I left too. I was 15. She was 16. And so we walked downtown Salt Lake from Sandy, and we stayed there in an old apartment with a friend, just there on the floor.
Yeah.
For about a week. Her mom came out, talked a little bit, and then everybody cut us off.
Yeah.
And so we were just on our own. My mom helped try to get us a place to stay in, so she lined up that I could move over to my brother's house. Mm-hmm. And this was another older brother that had a bunch of lost boys living there. Mm-hmm. And so we stayed on that living room floor. And here I have this beautiful girl with me, and there's all these crazy kids, and they're doing meth and weed and drink. And supposedly these are my buddies, and they're trying to tell me all this stuff's cool. But it was so cool because she never partook of any of that stuff. And this was just my stability, and she always has been.
Man, that's awesome.
But so we stayed there for a month, and then we moved over to my ex-sister-in-law's house and stayed on her floor there at Broadmoor Apartments. Stayed there for about 10 months. Mm-hmm. And in that process, then my mom got us a station wagon we could drive, and she had been talking to Rule and Jeffs about us.
So you hadn't been fully cut off from the family. Mom was still
just
looking
my
out.
mom. Everybody else cut us off.
Yeah.
Per se, is what's weird is I found out later that my dad didn't believe. I was about 18, and I was talking to Rulon Jeffs, and he asked me, he says, did you know your father doesn't hold priesthood?
And you had no idea.
And that was the first time I knew that he didn't believe, which was kind of bizarre. But so we all got cut off. My mom was talking to Rulon Jeffs, and Rulon Jeffs said, they're so young, have them come see me.
Yeah.
And so we went in and saw him, and he said, if you guys get married, you can come home.
Yeah.
And so I was 16 and she was 17. We came back home, lived in Salt Lake for about a year, and then we moved when I was Dude, I can't remember. I think I was 17. Yes, it was a year after we got married.
Yeah.
So we moved down. I moved down to Colorado City about 4 months before and was starting to build our house.
Mm-hmm.
And then she moved down with the rest of my parents' family.
Okay.
And so we moved into this house that had 1.5 bathrooms and 4 bedrooms. And there was 26 of us staying there. It was at my sister's house.
Whoa.
And so we were trying to finish up this house that we're building, and it just got so intense where we were staying there with my sister that we ended up just taking a camp trailer, moved it outside of the house. We got a wood stove that would heat water. We set up a temporary cabinet down in the basement, and then we would heat the water. Oh, in the bathroom, we just hung drywall and put some a blanket over the door, and we moved into that thing.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's some of the best time of our life, right?
I bet.
Like, it was such a fun journey. And here we are just, making a change in our life. I just got out of that mindset of friends and trying to
Fit in.
There you go. That's perfect. And got in the mindset of family and religion and community.
Mm-hmm.
And to move down to Colorado City, it just felt amazing. Like, so wholesome. You see these big, beautiful families. The community coming together, man. They would have once a month. They'd have these dances we'd go to. They'd usually once a month. It seemed like that there would be 2 families that would put on like a play. Yeah, and it was just so fun, man. I remember thinking this would be such a great place to raise my kids.
Yeah, I've heard so many stories about how that community is it is like one big family. Everybody's looking out for everybody, and they love to have a good time. The 4th of July, from what I hear, is probably one of the best parties in southern Utah.
Now, right? Because that's just pretty much apostates and Gentiles now.
Oh, okay.
But it still was amazing.
But back then, back then it was a little more.
And I use that language just so everybody knows, just to be funny.
Yeah,
that's what
I
we
hear
used
you.
to call them. Yeah.
That was the name. That was the name of it.
Yeah.
And
so even back then, dude, it was wholesome. They'd make this fabulous food. They would have parades and dances, and they'd include the young people. So they'd get up early and go practice these dances for the parade. It just felt really wholesome. I remember thinking how cool it would be to raise my kids there.
I think it's unfortunate, though, that the story that gets told to anyone outside is that there's this like sinister, like underlying, that permeates all of the corners of that community, that it's just, this pure evil, right? When the story gets told, but all the amazing parts of it rarely get told.
True, right?
Is there somewhere, if somebody wanted to get the whole side of the story, like where is there like a maybe a documentary on the flip side of it? Have you heard?
I don't know. That would just be really positive on that side.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, because it felt really accurate to me. Yeah. Because that part of the story, then I was there. I was the kid. I was during all that part. Like when Warren Jeffs was up there singing, or there was the high school kids that were putting on the skits in school. Then I was a little kid in the audience at that time. Yeah. And so I really related to that. I watched Preaching Evil, and I really appreciated that because it talked about the time when Warren left and we didn't know what was going on. Yeah. But as far as one that just shows a positive spin on it, I don't know if that would be a good seller.
But you felt like those 2 documentaries did a fairly good job?
I felt like it. Yeah. There wasn't anything that just really stood out as real erroneous. There's some things I didn't know about that I couldn't say if it was true or not on some of the crazy stuff, just because I wasn't in on that stuff. Yeah. But there was definitely underlying things. I mean, in any community, there's underlying things that are definitely bad.
Absolutely.
And so
there's no community that's absolved of that part of it. There's good and bad in every community.
And one thing with being raised in it, there was some things that didn't seem super odd. Like older guys marrying younger girls. That being raised in it didn't seem super weird. I mean, a little bit, but it's just kind of like part of our culture. So it didn't set off huge red flags for me in my mind.
Yeah. So when after you moved there, obviously you and your wife were starting a life and focusing on family and your beliefs. So then, from there, how did you start building where you're at now? So if people are just tuning in, Chris Wyler, you're with Pecan Valley Resort is the development you're currently working on, but this isn't your first rodeo. But I mean, I would definitely say a successful, developer, as a builder, as a guy who loves to create things and has had a lot of success doing that. How did you go from this, little basically
plague kid?
Yeah. Plague kid. Yeah.
And that's what's wild is that's all we did in that community. Mostly. I mean, there was other jobs, but mostly it was just creating things. Yeah. So we did construction. every Saturday, then we were required to work a full day unto the Lord. And so we'd meet at 7:30 in the morning, we'd have prayer and scripture, and then they would assign us out to a project, and we'd just go work for free in the community.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to work together, share ideas.
Yeah.
And so I love to create.
Yeah.
And my profession was flooring, and I ended up specializing in tile. And in that process, then Rulon had died and Warren took over, and he started to get really extreme. And it was based on the concept that that the Lord was preparing the people for the redemption of Zion. And so they slowly took us down these steps that just got so intense and odd. And you're kind of questioning it, like, this is, this is so weird. Like we pulled out of school, we could only do private school. And then we could only do homeschool after a certain amount of time. And it just kept getting stricter and stricter on what we could wear, how we conducted ourselves, to where it got to the point that, what was in 2004, man? Because 2003, I believe there was a law that Arizona was passing that was going to affect the polygamous peoples, not just the FLDS, but other polygamous people. And Warren got up in church and he said that this is an infringement on priesthood and we will not comply. And he went into hiding after that. And so we hadn't seen him for a long time. And in 2004, it was early 2004, I can't remember, January or February. But I came into church, and I'm usually the kind of guy that likes to get there maybe 10 minutes before and try to find a place up front. So I had 4 kids at the time.
Yeah.
And we found some seats in there. I think there was 4 seats. We had 2 kids on the floor, so we kind of snuck in up front there. We got sat down, got the kids on the floor, and I looked up, and it was only our prophet up there. All the other brethren were down in the audience. And so I remember like praying that I could be worthy to receive whatever our prophet had for us.
Yeah.
Whatever the Lord had for us.
Yeah.
And so Warren got up, he conducted the song, he said the prayer, and then he opened up his papers, and he said it was a revelation given from our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ to his servant Warren S. Jeff, such and such date. So it was almost like verbatim of the Doctrine and Covenants where it starts. And so in that, then the Lord had called out like 28 men. I can't remember the amount or the exact amount of men, but it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he named them off by name and had them stand up.
Right.
And the Lord said that these men he had lost confidence in them, and that they needed to repent from a distance immediately. And in order for them to come back, they had to write confession letters that matched what the Lord had revealed to his servant Warren.
Yeah.
And so,
That's
dude,
intense,
we're like,
dude.
yeah, this is 4 years into the redemption of Zion, or the 7th period of time, I should say.
Yeah.
Like we've always been pumped up about the redemption of Zion and all the destructions that have to happen before the redemption of Zion happens, before our Savior comes back. And so, and all this verbiage I'm using, this is just stuff that I was taught. It's not necessarily where I'm at in life, but I just use the same kind of lingo. Use the same kind of lingo that they indoctrinated us with.
Yeah.
And so, I remember in 4th grade.
This was in Keep Sweet and Pray.
It was.
Yeah. I think that moment was in that documentary.
Yeah. And I was there. And so in 4th grade, I remember Warren Jeffs was teaching seminary, and he was reading all the scriptures that talked about the destructions and like Russia attacking and China attacking the U.S. and there's prayer circles and there's going to be blood flowing in the street. The earth's going to reel to and fro like a drunken man. So he's just saying all this stuff, and I'm in 4th grade listening to it.
Yeah.
And he's like, children, we've got to hasten. We only have a short amount of years before the 7th period of time. We've got to hasten. And I remember sitting there in 4th grade thinking, I really don't care what happens, just as long as I get my driver's license. Just let me drive and it can all end.
Right.
But so, there's just this energy that we've been brought up in. And now here we are, the 4 years into the redemption of Zion. Our prophet's been in hiding. Yeah. And now he comes back and the Lord cast these men out. That's the vibe.
A bunch
That's
of guys.
the vibe. And not only a bunch of guys, but these are pillars of the community.
Yeah.
These guys have multiple wives and 60 kids, and every one of them are faithful. And
they participate. They participate in the community, right? They're active members in leadership and businesses and providing for a lot of people, right?
Well said. So it was just such a shock, and we're leaving that meeting, and there was this heavy feeling. People are crying as we're heading out, and I remember coming home to my family, and I gathered them together in the living room. And I just said, hey, if the Lord finds me unworthy, I want you guys to stay faithful, and I'll do the best I can to get back in the Lord's confidence. And so we just kind of went forward with that. And then these guys never came back. Warren ended up remarrying their wives off to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, I don't remember exactly where it was, but in October when my 19-year-old son was born, then I remember holding him as a baby, thinking that I'd try to keep my family together.
Yeah.
And to talk about your doubts with the faith was death.
Yeah.
Like if you question the Lord and the prophet, that's so serious.
Yeah.
And it's weird how they set up that barrier to where it made it difficult to talk about it to any family members or to question anything. And so my wife and I never discussed our doubts with the faith. So I didn't know how she felt about it.
So how did, I guess, yeah, and maybe you can help me understand this. How do they get from, like, if you just take the Gospels of just the New Testament Gospels and that image of Christ and Jesus, how did they jump this? It's almost like they leapfrog over all these things that Jesus said as the example. How did they leapfrog over into this, it's almost like a reversal of the control with the priesthood. Like, how do they explain that? Was that something that it was just kind of, no one really ever talked about it because that was questioning?
People would say different things.
Yeah.
Here and there. I never was one to really dig into it and nerd out on it.
Uh-huh.
I was just kind of the type of person that's like, hey, tell me how I'm supposed to be a good person. I'm going to do my best to do that.
And you were focused on, I want to keep my family together. I want to do right for my family.
That's really where it got to.
Yeah.
Before it was like we want to do right by the priesthood because that's what family was.
Mm-hmm.
But then after this happened, that's when I started to get reservations that I wanted to protect my family. I wanted to be ready.
Yeah.
Because you were asking how I got to where I am now. And this is kind of really pivotal.
Pivotal?
Pivotal. There we go. Thank you.
That's all right.
Pivotal to that story because after this happened and I made that decision that I would try to protect my family, that's when I started buying property. And so I got into property and started to develop it and that sort of thing. And so that was in 2005. So it's almost been 20 years. I've been doubling down on property.
So
tell people one day I'm going to buy some pants, or I'm going to buy some pants with giant pockets because one day I'm going to be rich.
Yeah, you just keep buying up land.
Yeah, so far I just keep doubling down.
So from the tile business, you were saving up money, and then basically 2007, 2008, things start falling apart. The building community here in Southern Utah really is just put on hold, right? There's it was heavy brakes were put on, the larger developments. It
was intense. We all know that. We can remember that clearly.
Yeah. And I wasn't here at the time, but I just heard so many stories. So when I got into real estate, I joined with Jeremy Larkin.
Cool.
And I just got a master's degree from a guy who was
he's
insanely knowledgeable. He was here. He was born and raised here. He knows all these stories. He was in the thick of real estate at that moment, right? He had a foreclosure tour bus that people would line up into a bus. It was like a short bus. And then he'd take them on a tour of 25 different foreclosed houses. And
he's the OG, man.
He's the OG. He really is. So I that's where I got the lessons in it, right? And hearing from it. But, looking at it from the tradesman's perspective, how were you scratching by at that time?
Well, so I bought some property in 2005. I started to develop it. We got some lots, built a spec house, and right as things were getting to the end, like it was falling and we were nervous about it, we was able to sell that, which paid a good portion towards the land. And so then I did another spec house on private money. And so when shit really hit the fan, then I had this private money.
Yeah.
And also in my tile business, everybody quit paying.
Right.
And then work dried up. So it was definitely a storm that was intense.
It was intense.
And so there was a local contractor here that moved in from California that does 24-hour fitnesses.
Okay.
And so he reached out to my brother to see if he was interested in doing those, doing the tile in the gyms.
Yeah.
And he looked at it and it's super intense, 26,000 square feet of tile. There's 5,000 square feet of dry pack that we have to do to shape all the floors.
Whoa.
It's all epoxy grout. So just an intense job, and it had to be done in 5 weeks.
Oh,
and so my brother's like, yeah, no, thank you. Call Chris. And so, it's me. And I'm like, dude, sign me up.
I'll be there. Sign me up.
So, we were still FLDS then. But I had some kids that worked for me that were a little bit on the fence. And this story is kind of funny because our first job was up in Everett, Washington.
Okay.
And I just felt, with everything that was going on, I don't know exactly why, but I just felt like a little homesick, out of place up there in Washington. It's all this rain. And so we get there, the contractor shows us what needs to get done. And it's like, cool, we're on it. I had 3 guys with me, and we're just going to bleed, man, knock this thing out ourselves. And so we get going, because he left, told me what we needed to do and what times it needed to be done. He called me a week in. He said, how you coming? And I told him, he's like, dude, you might want to pick it up a little bit. I'm like, hey, so I tell the guys, we get pushing, dude, we're just barely sleeping. We're sleeping on the floor in a 2-bedroom apartment that we rented and just hammering down.
Dude, and you know how to grind. You know how to grind it out.
So he calls me 2 weeks in and he says, Chris, where you at? And I tell him, there's a big pause. He says, Chris, you can do the nicest fucking job in the world, but you're a day late, you're done. And hung up.
Whoa.
So I called up some local people and dude just got it done. We're walking the job afterwards. And he's like, cool. He says, see you on the next one.
You did it anyway.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, I'm not going to be fired. I'm going to just go get it done.
So that was huge for us because through the recession, that's what we did was 24-hour fitness. We were to Hawaii, Seattle, Portland, the Bay Area.
After that first one, you're like, okay, I think there's some, is it copy and paste? Is a lot of it copy and paste?
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah. So you were able to kind of work out the efficiencies, know where it didn't have to be perfect.
Oh yeah, dude. Like we tried our best to make it perfect, but they wanted it done.
They wanted it done.
And so we had a great time doing those. A lot of times we'd go do one and take us, they'd ended up giving us 5 months. 5 weeks ended up being the intense part, but then we could finish up the details.
Yeah.
So we'd go work for the 3 months, then we'd come home. Usually it'd be about 3 months in between work. And so we'd build a spec house in between.
Man.
And so that's what we did. But one story that I thought was funny, I like to tell it about Everett, Washington up there.
Yeah.
Then for people that don't understand the LDS culture, you're not supposed to drink coffee in the LDS culture.
Right.
And I never knew that until after I had left. Maybe I knew it before, but in our culture, it was okay to drink coffee. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, they said, let's go get some coffee. We pull up to the coffee shop to get coffee, and the barista opens up the window, and all she has is electrical tape over her nipples. And I'm just like, dude, where the frick am I? This place is so crazy. And so I'm just feeling all awkward. And one of my guys that was driving, then he orders coffee and we get done. And after we go to leave, then she's like, hey, I showed you my tits. Aren't you going to give me a tip? And he says, will you give me a tip if I show you my tits? I'm like, dude, I need to get humor like that. That was hilarious.
Yeah. Wholesome kid. You're not, that stuff's not going to come up right up.
Well,
he
was one of the kids that were struggling.
Yeah.
But no, man, it was cool. And to just get in and have work during that time was a blessing. I was so grateful, even if we were traveling. It was really cool to include my family. Mm-hmm. And that usually, like the first 5 weeks, like I said, was intense. And then part of the crew would go home. Mm-hmm. And so I would bring my family with me.
That's awesome.
So the kids got to go live in all those places. And it was really special in Hawaii. They got to spend 5 weeks in Hawaii. Yeah. Our first job was in Pearl City. And so we just got a beautiful home that had just been remodeled. I think it was 7 bedrooms, man.
Nice.
5 bathrooms, and it was there in Aiea.
You're like, this is way better than where we started.
Dude, it was in Aiea, and it was just amazing. The kids learned how to swim over there, and it was funny to tour around in there. My wife, to keep us modest, then we'd bought dive skins, and she sewed skirts on the girls' dive skins, and then I just wore shorts over my dive skins, and that's how we would go to the beach and stuff. And it was
everybody's looking
funny.
at you.
Well, yeah, I'll tell that story too, but it was kind of funny because my employees were like, dude, I can't believe you let your family dress like that. Like they thought it was so offensive. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
We're nothing bothered you. Yeah, we're good.
And so we're at the beach, so it's kind of funny because people would definitely look at us and like, oh, where are you guys from? And are you from Europe? And they're like, oh, no, we're from Utah. And they're like, oh. It wasn't cool anymore if you're from Utah.
Yeah.
But the kids were dressed traditionally, and so all of us were.
Yeah.
And it was fun to just go around different places because people treated us so nice over there.
Yeah.
We were on the battleship Missouri, and one of the main tour guides took his time out to take us on a special tour, and it was a magical time.
That is
not to get off topic, but that was something that got us through the recession.
Yeah.
And that property that I had out in cane beds is where I developed it.
Oh, okay.
Then it wasn't anything I really made any money on, but it just kept a spot that I could put all my money instead of giving it to the church.
Yeah.
Because after I'd made the decision to keep my family together, then I quit paying tithing. Mm-hmm. I would still give.
10%? Was that still, is that kind of the.
That's the minimum that you should give. Uh-huh. We were taught that you should give until it hurts. Mm. And there was even different times that, like Lyle Jeffs would say that, you should try living off 10%.
Wow.
That's all you're giving the Lord. you try that for a little while. That type of thing, just trying to pressure us into giving money.
Yeah.
But it was a mind game. It never was, when I'd ever go in and see the prophet, we'd call it. Back in the day when Rulin was alive, we were supposed to go see him every month.
Yeah.
But never did a question of tithing ever come up on any of that stuff.
Chris, I remember from that Keep Sweet movie, they said that after Warren was on the run, he was spending $300,000 a week.
Insane, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it
crazy.
just blew me away to find out what he did during those times and what they did in Texas.
Yeah.
Because when he went into hiding and people started disappearing, equipment was just going away. We stopped any type of improvements in Colorado City unless it was necessary.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things changing, and they wouldn't tell us where Zion was. They said that they were establishing a place for the people.
So you didn't know where it was.
We didn't know where it was until
it was Texas, right?
it was Texas.
Texas. Yeah.
And we found out it was other places as well, but Texas was the main one, and we never found out about it. I didn't until the raid happened.
Wow. So then as he gets arrested and then things start kind of falling apart. So what's the name of the trust? UAE?
UEP. United Effort Plan.
So that was kind of like the overarching when you were donating, when you were tithing. That's where it was going. Is that essentially?
I don't know.
Not
I
sure.
don't know how it was. I know the UEP would pay taxes, and so during tax season there would be a big push for everybody to give money. And whenever they'd reach out for money like that, I would give some. Like if they needed help for legal bills or they needed help for taxes, I would give that. And then I would still work every Saturday for free just so I wouldn't burn in hell.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was your safeguard. You're like, Saturdays is how I don't burn in hell. Here we go.
And so from 2004 to 2012, so it was really close to 8 years. Then it was just nerve wracking.
Yeah.
You would get a restricted phone call, and it was usually the bishop's office.
Yeah.
And people would just lose their family over nothing, and it was so random.
Wow.
And it was so odd. I went to lunch at my sister's house one day, and we're sitting there visiting, and she's like, "Oh, did you hear so and so was corrected?" Like it was just another thing, and they lost their family, they lost their religion, they lost their community.
So they were just like the guy, the husband was brought in. He's like, you're out of the community. And then all the wives, they would all just do what they were told. Is that essentially?
Very, very seldom did they not.
Wow.
Yeah, because we were always raised that if you didn't get married properly and you weren't married to a man that held the priesthood, then you couldn't be saved in heaven.
Yeah.
And so if your husband lost priesthood, and I don't know what their relationship was like. I know people would ask me, "What do you think about so-and-so losing their family?" I'm like, dude, I learned a long time ago to stay out of people's marital problems.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my business. When it comes to me and my family, I'd be glad to answer whatever questions you need or whatever, but that's their business. I don't know what's going on with them.
So the cane beds, you mentioned that one, but I'm not familiar with that. So you bought, that was one of the first houses?
So it's 15 and a half acres.
Okay.
And then we just built some houses out in there and sold that one out.
Okay.
And that was just a really simple subdivision. Like we had to source some water, which in Arizona, you don't need to have water rights. And the previous owner had already did a lot of exploration on the property there. And so I needed to get some easements, and we found water. Man, it was about 2,500 feet away from the property.
Oh, not bad.
And so we put in a couple wells there, sold out the property, and then I was able to buy this property down in Hurricane, and that was my next project there. And the reason that we even bought that, it was after we had left. And so it's what brought about to leave is in 2011, Warren had that revelation that the only people that could remain in the church are those that qualified for the Holy United Order. And there's been this 8 years of intensity of not knowing if you're going to lose your family. You'd get that restricted phone call and you'd be like, dude, is this it?
Yeah.
And my wife and I never talked about our doubts with the faith, so I didn't know if she would leave with me, because I'd already always kind of planned on that.
Yeah.
That I would try to protect my family, but I didn't know if she would go with me.
Yeah.
And so in 2005, then I was working down here in St. George, and I get a phone call from my wife, and she says, "Hey, the bishop's office is here and they'd like us to move." And my plan was I would stay in our house if they asked us to leave.
Yeah.
And so that was a real test on my feelings.
Yeah.
And they asked us to move into this remodeled 70 by 14 trailer, 14 by 70, however they worded it. But it was a trailer that had been remodeled.
And you had how many kids at the time? All seven? Was
I
that?
had 6 at the time.
Oh, wow.
6 at the time, yeah. So it was definitely a test on my feelings.
So nobody owned any of the property. So let me back up one step. So there's Colorado City, and then there's Hilldale.
Yes.
So what was the dynamic between those two communities?
Just the different states, different time zones, certain times of the year.
Yeah, right. So
other than that, it seemed like it was the same.
So it was all the same. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So,
and I lived on Uzona. So I lived barely in Hilldale.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of cool that my grandma lived on this street, and so I lived on Wyler Street. So it was kind of fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Both streets were kind of cool.
Nice. And so, but nobody owned you didn't own any of the property. You just built on whatever materials or money you could scrounge up. You put together a house.
And that's why they were unfinished. You could not get a mortgage on it.
Right.
And so it's either have kitchen cabinets or stucco.
I had heard one time it was like this conscious decision to not finish the house so that you didn't have to pay taxes on it.
That was a rumor, and I'd talked to different people about that, and they're like, "Yeah, no way. The county charges this full price for every house."
Yeah. So it wasn't like if it doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, it doesn't get tax on it. No, they still tax you on it.
Oh yeah.
And
tax burden was pretty heavy.
So it was really just whatever money you had, you built until you ran out. Yeah. And when you could keep going, you would keep going.
And so our house was 5,200 square feet, had 2 living spaces in there. My parents designed the basement for me and my wife, and then they were up top. And my dad died in 96, and my mom remarried and moved out. And so here we are in 2005, and they want us to move. But it's wild. They taught us in church, and everything seemed so wholesome. They were teaching us how you should never set your heart on earthly possessions. If the priest had ever asked you to move from your home to accommodate a better situation for families, do it. And I remember feeling so good about that.
Yeah.
Like I loved to build our house and to create that thing. And, I had a 3-car garage, both these living spaces, a garden. It was on a full acre. We had a basketball court on it. We finished it, man. It was all grass. I remember after I'd finished it, I was walking around thinking, how cool would it be for a family to be able to enjoy this, because not very many families had a finished home.
Yeah.
But as time went on and I saw families get given stuff like that and they just destroyed it.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I don't want to just give up my home.
Yeah. There's been studies, but the communal living, right, where, the community provides everything, eventually that's where it degrades to, right, is that some people are carrying the weight of the others, and at a certain point in time there's this impasse where they're like, hey, this is an unbalanced community, right? I'm here working, caring, providing for my family, and then this other family's not doing any of those things, and they just get handed the things. It builds up this tension over time.
No, it was a trip, the whole dynamics of it, and to just grow with it, to evolve a little bit. I still love to give and help. I kind of wanted to just keep my path on a path that was building in the right direction.
Yeah. So
giving up my house didn't seem the best way, but I did actually. So I moved.
You did it. Yeah.
And it was crazy because I came home and there was probably like 20 girls boxing up stuff in her house. And the moving guy, I can't remember what his name was. Then I says, well, do you know where we're moving? And he's like, well, we don't know yet.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And so they're boxing up all this stuff, and they're going to move us across the street to where my brother's going to stay in that house, but they're going to put me in 3 bedrooms and put all my stuff down in the basement of this house. And so we got talking about where I was going to move, and then they took me over to this house that was this trailer that had been remodeled. And we remodeled it as a community. Mm-hmm. And I remember after we got done remodeling, I'm like, man, I would hate to live in this house. And so now
that was a moment. And then being the believer that you were, you're thinking like, Lord,
God's punished me.
Yeah, totally, this is a cruel joke. This is a cruel joke. I should have said that. My thoughts betrayed me.
And so we moved over there. We added a master bedroom on it and another floor, and redid the backyard and made it nice, very comfortable. So we lived 10 years in our first house, moved into another house, lived there for 10 years, and then got our old house back. It was awesome. I was able to get that in my name. I got it back from the trust.
Oh, nice. And was that just recently? Or was that?
No, it was 2014, maybe something like that. Yeah, a couple years after we left. And so to kind of get into the story of how we left, Warren had that revelation on the Lyle Jeffs had to judge the Short Creek Stake of Zion. They started giving us special trainings on to prepare for this sacred covenant. And it seemed positive, going through church. They were kind of teaching us how to be better people to qualify for this Holy United Order. One thing that was kind of intense is they're saying how serious this covenant was. Because back in the Bible days, I haven't really read the Bible, so I can't quote it from firsthand, but this is the story that they told us. In St. Peter's time, then they were establishing the United Order. And there was a husband and wife that wanted to join, but they talked together and they thought, well, let's hold back a portion just in case it doesn't work. We'll have something to fall back onto. And so the husband went into his interview, and Peter asked him, are you giving your all? And he said, yes. And God killed him.
Yeah.
And so they drug his body out. His wife came in and they asked her, and she said, yes. And he said, you'll go the way of your husband. And God killed her. And they said, brothers and sisters, we cannot enter into this covenant without serious consequences if we break it. So we need to be prepared. So they started teaching us what that preparation was. And so as they're doing that, then, it was multiple meetings that we went to. Lyle called a special priesthood meeting. They reached out to all the elders and let us know. And so we came to this meeting, and all of us men and our boys just meet in one big room. We have prayer and song, and then the lower priesthoods move into other rooms. So anybody that's not an elder went into their different classes. So we all moved forward. So I ended up about 11 rows back, which is really close.
Yeah.
11 rows from the front. And so Lyle, we had our meeting. It seemed positive. Like I felt like it was okay.
Yeah.
All the other men are moving or coming back in now, and they're getting in their seats, and it's not quite time to close. And Lyle gets up to the pulpit, and as he gets up there, then he leans up on it and he adjusts the mic down, and he says, brothers and sisters, he says, if you don't make it into the United Order, he says, your marriage covenant will be invalid. Or he says, you'll lose priesthood, and he says, your marriage covenant will become invalid. And he says, anything more than a handshake with your wife will be adultery. So hasten, brethren, hasten.
Hurry up.
And dude, I'm just sitting back like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be guilty of adultery. Like, this is so intense, man.
That's intense.
And I have these reservations that, okay, if they don't want me here, then I have the ability to leave. And so I was trying to prepare myself that way, but I hadn't lost my testimony. And so that's where we're at this time. So we're having this intense trainings. I have that property out in Cane Beds, and I'm doing a spec house out there. So it's about 7 minutes from Colorado City there, the meeting house. Seems like it. I can't remember. It seemed like I timed it with 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
Yeah, that's off of
7
memory.
minutes and 32 seconds.
That's off of memory from a long time ago. But so I'm out there with my electrician talking, and I get a restricted phone call. Whoa. So I answer it, and it said, hello, this is so-and-so with the bishop's office. You're invited to come into your meeting. And I said, yeah, I can come in now. And so I hung up and I told my electrician, which, dude, I had a lot of respect for this guy. He had 2 wives, 12 kids, just seemed really wholesome values about him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, I'm going into my interview. And he just got really solemn. And he says, he says, I'm concerned I could lose my family. And I didn't want to get into his business, but he just kept talking. He's like, sometimes I enjoy sitting down to a restaurant and watching a ball game. 2 things we're not supposed to do. If we ever had food, we were supposed to take out. If we ever got food from outside of the community, we were supposed to do takeout, and we definitely weren't supposed to watch sports. That was idolatry. That's worshiping man over God. And so these 2 things, he thinks he's going to lose his family.
Oh my
and so
gosh,
I asked him,
man.
I says, if they ever asked you to leave, I says, would you try to keep your family with you? And he says, no way. He says, I don't want innocent blood on my skirt. And so I just tell that story to show how everybody felt in the community. You just didn't know. It was so random and crazy that these people were getting kicked out. So I drove back in, got to the meeting house. There was like 3 levels of security to get in with all the publicity and everything that was going on. It was just pretty tight security.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting there for my turn. It becomes my turn to go in there. And as they take me up into the room where I go into, then there was an executive desk that Lyle was behind. And then there was a couch to my right that had a scribe and counselor. And then there was another counselor to my left. And so I shook hands with everybody and we sat down. And Lyle says, there's 2 questions I need to make sure you understand before we get started. He says, the first is clean and pure thoughts. Because to enter into this sacred covenant, you can only have clean and pure thoughts. And so he wanted to describe what that meant. And he says, thoughts don't come from within, they come from without. So when a thought's presented to your mind...
What does that mean?
I'm just listening.
Yeah.
And so he says, when a thought's presented to your mind, you've got to decide whether it's good or evil. And he says, if it's evil, he says, Father gave us a rule that if you have any thoughts longer than 3 seconds, that you need to get it out of your mind or else you're thinking evil. Do you understand? And I says, yes. And then he says, the next is the law of purity. And that's a new revelation that Warren had sent from prison, that there's to be no marital relations between husband and wife unless you know she can conceive a child. And he says, there's no practice sessions. Do you understand? And I said, yes. And so then we got started with our interview, and he was asking me some questions that I was answering positive to. But then he came to the question, do you seek Gentile entertainment? And they'd been teaching us in these last days that there's not time for any frivolous things. Yeah. No more hunting, hiking, fishing, or sports. If there's any free time, we need to be building up the kingdom of God or our neighbor or our family, which I appreciated that. And I love to do all those things, but I like to go play with my family.
Yeah.
And so I said, if going on a hike or something like that with my family, if that's Gentile entertainment, then I definitely seek Gentile entertainment. And so he took some notes, and the next question was, he says, do you only think clean and pure thoughts? And I says, I can't answer that 100% yes. I says, but I always strive to.
Yeah.
And he took some more notes, and he put his pen down, and he says, last question, are you living the law of purity? And I says, not the way you're describing it. He says, okay, sums up our interview. We shook hands with the other men in the room. Shook hands with the securities. I went out. Dude, I just felt okay.
Yeah.
Like whatever happens, it's going to be okay.
You were honest.
And I went back to work.
Because you could have easily just lied, right?
I would think so. It's just not really something that I wanted to do.
Do you think the preparation and that all those meetings ahead of time was basically kind of priming you, especially with that example of like St. Peter? And I don't even know if that's a true exact part of the story, but do you think that was priming you to like answer these questions honestly? Because
I would think so, man. It's wild how the mind games that they would play. It just seems so boggling that they could come up with the mind games they played. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Warren taught that the devil will teach you 99 truths to get you to believe one lie. Turns out
I've heard that before.
Turns out he was maybe not on the right side.
Yeah, he picked that one up. He put that one in his pocket.
Yeah. But so I just went back to work.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was about 3 days later. It was 10:30 at night. I was working on an estimate on my computer in my pajamas. It's wintertime outside. And my phone rings and it's restricted. I'm like, man, is this it? And I answered it. And he said, hello, this is Ray B. Allred with the Bishop's office. He said, I wanted to first start out by saying this is an act of love. He says, you're no longer a member of the church. You no longer hold priesthood. You no longer have a marriage covenant. He says you're to remain in your home and be a steward over your family. You can no longer come to general meetings, but you can come to these 11 o'clock non-member meetings. Do you have any questions? And I'm just like, whoa, dude, my mind's just racing. Like they didn't ask me to leave. This is odd. And so my question to him was, I said, does this mean I need to move into a separate room than my wife? Because I'd been working on the Saturday projects, and I noticed other men finish in rooms separate, so they could be separate from their wives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just asked that, and he says I would. He says you might get aroused.
Oh my gosh!
And I says
a handshake. That's all you get.
I says, well, what about a civil marriage? And he's like, yeah, you can get a civil marriage. Like you're going to throw away your salvation for these few seconds on earth? Sure. It was that kind of tone of voice.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what if I already have one? And there's a big pause, and he's like, I don't know. He says, I'm just the messenger boy. And so I told him thanks and hung up, man. And it's just like, oh my gosh. I just went outside in the cold, laid on the trampoline, looking up at the stars, came back into bed, and I stayed on my side of the bed. Mm-hmm. And the next day I told my wife what they'd said. And she said, really? And the way she'd said it, I didn't know if that meant she would go with me or how she was feeling. And so that night I sat down with just her and I says, darling, I says, I don't feel like I could be happy going forward with what they're asking me to do. I says, I feel like it would be best for me to live my life the best I can. I says, I don't know what that looks like. I says, but I want you to be a part of that. I says, but I'll respect whatever you choose. If you feel like your family's here or your salvation, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And she just says, I just want to be together as a family.
Yeah.
And then she looked down and she looked back up at me and she says, do you think we can be happy outside of the church? I don't know. And so we just started to transition and adjust from there. I tell people now it's been 12 years. We're just trying to live positive and show people there's life after Jeff's.
Yeah. There is, man. Wow.
Because there's like life after death, right?
Life after death. Nice.
But yeah, so from there,
you got me thinking. You got me deep in here. I'm like, I'm missing the levity a little bit because I'm trying to put myself into that situation, and even knowing now, and it's almost impossible for somebody to empathize, in this kind of scenario. Like just thinking, like the whole from, sneaking out to marrying her, leaving and coming back, and this rededication to it, and and then ultimately, you didn't really do anything. I mean, to them, you did something wrong, but you didn't do anything that was outside the ordinary of every human on earth, right?
Right. And I felt that way, dude. I didn't feel like they were asking me to do something because I was a bad person.
Do you think some of your experience, traveling and getting outside of that community and seeing how other people live, do you think that helped see, because if you're just isolated in that community or just in Southern Utah and you're not traveling out, you're not seeing, the barista with their pasties on and things like that. Do you think that helped kind of, give you some, I mean, that probably didn't necessarily
see
help,
just one eye, just use one eye. That way it's half as bad.
That's just half as bad, right?
And it could have definitely had an impact on that. I don't know. My mother told me that she felt like I had more Gentile blood in me because people kind of got the vibe that I wasn't like deep into it.
Yeah.
Even though I tried.
Yeah.
Man, I tried to give it all and just be fervent and pray when they said to and all that stuff. But I think they could get the vibe that I wasn't super deep into it, which was kind of odd to me because I felt like I was.
Yeah.
Because I worked on so many people's houses. I knew so many of the people there.
So much service, and you were in the 11th row, right? Like in those meetings, you were accepted, but not fully, embracing the whole Kool-Aid, if you will, right?
Maybe. It's just, have you seen that YouTube video of when we were on the news on CNN?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, you'll have to pull it up. It's on YouTube. I posted it.
See if you can pull it, Jeff.
If you do Chris Wyler, FLDS, and Wyler's Wyler. But yeah, just kind of puts a glimpse into what it was like then. It's kind of cool to just peek back into that because it feels like a different time, different world.
So that was 12 years ago?
It was 2008 when I did the interview.
Oh, okay.
And so we were still there 4 years after we did the interview.
Yeah.
Which, it was wild because that interview was kind of crazy too because we didn't have great contact with leadership. And I thought we were supposed to do it.
So
yeah, just do YouTube.
Go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And then Chris Wyler.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it right there.
Let's see this. Can we get sound?
Family.
Did everybody else get steak?
That's you?
You need some that's cut up?
Chris and Lydia are the parents. Their children, Michaela, Derek, Kendra, Bryson, and then two who nodded off, 3-year-old Reagan and 8-month-old Jaren, who sleeps next to a picture of a man who means so much to this family, their prophet, Warren Jeffs.
We're part of the FLDS. 2, 3, go!
That's the tramp.
We have never before been invited into the home of a family that is part of the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints, the polygamous sect that split off from the Mormon Church. The church tells its followers to avoid contact with outsiders. But Chris Wyler invited me to play some basketball at his home in Colorado City, Arizona.
Kareem!
Ooh. And spend time with his family because he felt okay about letting us know more about his wife, children, and their beliefs.
To me, our church is super important. It's our family values. It's what our whole life's based on. This one's going
the hoop.
The Wylers were distraught when they learned more than 400 children were taken away from their parents at the church-owned ranch in Texas.
Does it scare you this could happen to your children?
It's a possibility, but I don't know, we just have to go forward in faith.
I just couldn't believe it. I'd come home to my children and think about having them taken out.
We spent time here with children who seemed very happy, even joyous. They were polite, smiling.
Somebody looks angry.
I'm not angry.
And enjoyed showing off their vacation photos. Chris Wyler says his is the typical FLDS family. He doesn't believe the state of Texas's claims of abuse on the ranch.
Anybody that's here, we're taught that we're never ever supposed to even really yell at our children. Anytime that our children do something wrong, we're supposed to not even raise our voice any more than this. Just work it out, talk it out, sometimes give them a timeout. And there's no way anybody I know would ever abuse their wife.
The FLDS believes polygamy is holy, Most men around here have at least 2 wives. Some of the leaders have dozens. But Liddy is Chris's only wife, at least for now.
At least for now. Oh, dun, dun, dun.
Chris and Lydia Wyler and their 6 children are loyal members of Warren Jeff's FLDS church.
So how much longer do you think we're going to have to do school?
Probably June 8th.
So was this before they had...
Like almost all families in this closed society, the children are taught at home. Television programs are never
How much
watched,
time's
although
left?
the family does
Yeah,
watch
we can watch it
educational
later.
videos.
It's 2 more minutes.
Much of popular...
Pause it right here, though. So this, at this time of this interview, that was after you were asked to... You lost the priesthood?
No,
so this is before. This is still
don't I
in.
look like I was in?
I know you were in.
Yeah.
You were in for sure. So how long did you, after you lost the priesthood, how long did you stay in that home?
Well, so after they let me know I wasn't a member,
Yeah.
talked with my wife, we decided we'd stay together.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just started going forward with our lives.
Yeah.
And my thought is I would be glad to give them the home and move out without trying to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
If they would provide labor for my new home, I'd buy all the materials, but I'd want them to provide the labor. You know, they have the workforce that wouldn't be too
Right.
big of a deal for them. I'd come up with the material. I'll leave the property.
Yeah.
That never happened. They never said that. You know, there was a few times that they reached out to me and wondered if I wanted to come back into an interview, and I just wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And so we stayed there for.
You're like, my
another-
answers aren't going to change. So
Well, I never even told them I didn't believe. It's just like, yeah, I don't think it'd be necessary.
yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
So I didn't have a lot of conversation with them other than that. And I got my other house back. So I stayed in Colorado City for another 5 years.
Okay.
And then we had bought this. We wanted to move out of Colorado City. I felt like there was better opportunity to work with property in a better area.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were looking for a property that we could have our goats and horses.
Yeah.
And so we found 25 acres down by Sand Hollow.
Oh man.
And we put an offer in on it. It was a federal land seizure
Okay.
from Jeremy Johnson.
Oh, Jeremy. If Jeremy's listening, man, we want you on the podcast too. That's an incredible story.
Yeah,
too.
you
So-
need to, Jeremy. I'd love to hear it. But
Yeah.
my joke is always, because it was solid lava on the first phase,
Mm-hmm.
but the third phase I had a bunch of dirt work we had to do.
Uh-huh.
So I was hoping I'd find some of that gold, Jeremy.
I know. He's probably got it now. Now that he's
Is that
back,
what it is?
he's
Yeah.
probably. I heard he buried it out there somewhere.
Because maybe my excavators found it and just didn't say something. But so that was kind of wild.
That's so
to get
fun.
that.
Rob, we were talking about that like a week ago.
I know. We were just talking about that.
Dude,
It's
it's a
like,
sign.
It's a sign.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
He's probably got it because he's back moved out there. He's
Dude,
over in
he's a
Dixie's
go-getter.
Creek
He's
area.
rocking and rolling. Yeah.
And he was one that helped a lot of the lost boys and kids.
Yeah, that guy
done a
has an
lot of stuff.
amazing, and I only know it from bits and pieces from people in the community, but that's a wild story too, man.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
Get him on here.
That's a good one. And so, you get the property in Hurricane. Is
And
that
I'm
the
totally just a hobbyist at playing with property. Man, I haven't watched any videos on real estate.
really?
I started getting into crash cars just because I always like to have a side gig going, trying to make extra money
Mm-hmm.
aside from our flooring, just so we're a little bit more dynamic in
Yeah.
our portfolio.
Yeah.
Tile, cars.
Tile and cars.
So I got
Perfect
into
balance.
buying cars from Copart. And so, different friends would just buy them crashed or would repair them. And
You're talking
so,
Jeff's language here. Jeff
we-
loves fixing up cars.
Yeah, so we did
Yeah.
about 300 cars.
Whoa.
And it was kind of fun because we weren't supposed to travel anymore.
Okay.
And so if we were working, then we could travel. So that was fun. So my family got to go travel because I worked out of town. So we got to go to Hawaii and
Yeah, do
Seattle
all
and
these
Portland. And then also I'd buy these crashed cars off Copart. And cars that would sell really well in Colorado City were Buick LeSabres. And you could get them for like $1,500, $2,000. And then you'd put about $3,000 in them and sell them for $8,000. You'd make a couple grand.
Yeah.
But so I bought this one that was over in Long Island
Uh-huh.
that had been T-boned. And so they'd ripped off the doors with the jaws alive. And we're looking at this picture after we were awarded the bid, and I had it shipped over to a storage unit so I didn't have to pay the storage on it while we're figuring this out. But me and my coworkers were like, dude, I bet we could drive that home. And so we had this whole plan. We got a Econoline mirror. We took all the tools over so we could build a side on this thing, and we flew over to Long Island. And it was so funny. So the driver's side door is what has the module in that programs the key, and there was no keys with it.
So
we couldn't even start it. So we drove around, and there was some wrecking yards down in Babylon, which I was like, whoa, this is kind of funny.
This is weird.
So we got some old parts from out of a 2000, and this was a 2005,
Uh-huh.
and the wires didn't match up, and it takes 45 minutes to program the key. So we just guessed how to put the wires together, and we're sitting there programming this thing, and this is our third day of working on it. and the battery dies
for a
at
couple
like,
$100 or a couple grand. For a couple grand.
and so and this an adventure. Like,
Yeah,
we're just
yeah,
having an
exactly,
adventure. And
exactly.
so just as it's about to be the 45 minutes, the damn battery died, dude.
Oh my
And I just told
gosh.
my guys, I'm like, dude, let's just get a ticket. I'm done.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, dude, let me try it once more.
One more time.
And so we jumped it. We waited the 45 minutes, and this thing started. And dude, it's all blowing smoke out the backside and ran for a while. And
Everybody's high-fiving.
and we're driving. Yeah, we're so stoked. And we're driving through the storage unit area. It has these big dips in for the storm water. And it's all throwing sparks out. And the back axle thing was kind of bent in, the A-frame. And so we sort of straightened that thing out. And so from there, we went and dropped off the car over to the car rental place, the rental car we had. And people were coming out, dude, because they thought this crash car was a rental. And like, what happened? You know, it's so funny all the attention we got.
Yeah.
And so
It
then,
reminds me of Tommy Boy. I don't know if you've ever seen Tommy Boy.
I don't know if I remember. I might have.
You know what I'm talking about, Jeff? Where the deer wrecks the inside of his, I think it was like a Chevelle. Like, yeah, like a classic 19...
Yeah, the deer wakes up in the back of the...
Yeah, they hit a deer and then they don't want to leave it there, so they put it in the back of the car.
Blood
and
everywhere.
it's a beautiful. Well, it's like a beautiful.
Big buck, and then it wakes up.
It wakes up and just wrecks the truck or wrecks the car. Like doors off. They have like tarp over the top and like the door. You know,
That's
they have
this
like
thing.
tape
That's
in the
this
window.
thing for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so I can't remember if it was December that we're over there in Long Island.
Oh my gosh! And it's
But
cold.
so I asked directions. This is before we had GPS.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, dude, where's the Home Depot, the rental car guy? And he gives me some directions, which I'm not great at directions already.
Yeah.
And so it's a miracle I found this place. So we get on the freeway. We get off the
You
exit.
got on the freeway.
And
on this
yeah,
thing.
dude, I'm cruising down the freeway with no doors, and this freezing wind is just whipping by. And I'm like, what are we doing now? So we pull into Home Depot, and it's just about to close. And so I tell the guy, I'm like, dude, I need to get some plywood, some plexiglass, some caulk, some tape, some paint. And he tells the cashier, stay open, and we'll help him. So we got all this stuff out. And we're out there in the parking lot assembling it. It was just fun, man.
Oh
We
my
built this
gosh.
wood side on it, and
No
and
cop.
so the next day-
You drove all the way back.
yeah, so the next day we went over because we'd scheduled to get the windshield replaced because the windshield was kind of smashed in on the driver's side.
Yeah, it makes
and
sense.
so we're sitting there in the lobby to get it fixed, and the tech comes out and he's like, "Dude, could you come look at this?" And we go on the back, and he's got it sitting in there. There's about an inch gap on both sides because the car's been smashed in. And so I'm like, "Can you caulk it?" And he's like, yeah. So he caulks this thing up. So from Long Island, we drive up to Rochester, go and check out the church sites. Then we go over to Niagara, and then we drove down to Nauvoo and some of those places, and just came back. By the time we got to Grand Junction, the tire that had the back tire that had the bent A-frame thing was worn through the cords.
Oh my
So we pulled into
gosh.
Big O, paid $25, got a new tire. But such an adventure. I'm leaving out a lot of parts.
You should have kept
Dude,
that. You should have kept that car. That car is sticking with you forever. That's
pulling
amazing.
into the
Are you gonna pull pictures?
the toll booth.
Uh-huh.
Then we couldn't roll down the window, so we'd have to run around every time.
Uh-huh.
And it was just such a great adventure. But so anyhow, we're getting off topic. But yeah, dude, we loved adventure. It was cool. We did cars. It just didn't pencil that much, and it was
it's
kind
a
of
lot
a pain
of
in the butt that I thought it'd be cool to get into real estate, and also I wanted a place for my family. And that's when I transitioned and started putting all my effort into real estate.
And that by this time, because the market starts kind of building back up in 2012, 13, things start picking back up.
It was perfect, right?
It was
Like
perfect
24-hour
timing.
fitness just started slowing down at that point.
Yeah.
And so for us to come back and have work was a blessing.
brilliant.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it was still crazy. Like the property we bought down in Hurricane, there in Pecan Valley, then it was just a stupid purchase, man. Like you could buy finished lots in Dixie Springs for $30,000.
Yeah, it was like $1,200
With
for the
the
lot, and then you had to pay like a $20,000
yeah.
PID or whatever.
Dude,
right?
and there was just no way I could develop land and compete with that.
Yeah, right.
And so to buy this raw land was, everybody thought I was stupid.
Yeah, and you're like, well, just wait.
And I didn't even think that. I'm just like, dude, real estate's, it's not time in the market, right? It's not timing the market, it's time in the market.
Yeah.
And it fit great for my family. What was wild, dude, is the price we paid was really minuscule,
Uh-huh.
but it was a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't know how I was going to pull it off. And we got it. We started to get it engineered so we could subdivide it up and get it entitled.
So this is Pecan
all
Valley,
new
or
to
this
me.
is different?
This is Pecan Valley.
Okay.
And this is all new to me. So I'm just working with the different engineers in the city and talking about what our options
And what
are.
year is this when you guys first started?
2015, maybe.
Okay.
Guessing.
Yeah.
Because I think it was
9 years ago.
2014 probably, because it was 2 years after that we were able to move down. So it was 2016. So it was only about 4 years that we stayed out to the creek. I thought it was 5.
Yeah.
But time goes by.
The creek's Colorado City Hillville area.
Yeah,
The
Short Creek.
The Short Creek. Yeah.
But so anyhow, we just started developing that up. And in that process, then I thought, let's go big and try to see if we can't get participation on these utilities. So I talked to a lot of the property owners down there. We had our first option for our sewer. We had A, B, and C. And so we went to the different property owners to see if they would participate, and nobody would. And so we ended up putting it in the spot that strategically worked for me, but it would be as beneficial as it could be for the valley.
So Jeff, let's pull up the resort. Yeah, man, what an insane story, man. I'm just thinking of like the journey of like where you've come and with this vision in place. I'll say this, if you've looked at as many homes as I have in southern Utah, I can walk into a house and say, oh yeah, Polygamous built this. Like almost immediately. There's a perspective that you can't get if you're just influenced by like, I guess mainstream mainstream suburban architecture or design. There's this perspective that the polygamous community, it doesn't have. There's not this.
It's like this energy, or this like not energy. It's like this element of construction, and as maybe judgmental as it sounds, it's true. I'd agree with it.
Yeah, it's cool. Like it even if you drive around Colorado City and Hilldale, if you look at it with an open mind, rather than seeing dirt roads and no sidewalks and partially finished houses. If you look at some of the houses closely, you're like, that person's artistic mind, right? Like they were completely free to choose. It's like a kid with Legos where, like, my son, he showed me I had to correct him. He's saying submarine wrong, right? But he's like, hey, it's a submarine. And it was like kind of close to a submarine, but not quite. You could just tell that it's not this perfect rendition of it. And you look at some of these houses and you're like, how could they have imagined this kind of a layout or this kind of a design? And the creative thought that comes into a lot of the especially in Hurricane, you're going to see it a lot, but like American Heritage, the brothers, Seth and Shem, I'm trying to blank out, the Fosters. They have such a unique design. Like there's some classic architectural stuff that they do, but all of their parade homes that I've ever seen, I'm like, this is as unique as you could really kind of imagine for any kind of house, whether it's a small house or whether it's a massive house that has, 15 bedrooms or whatever, you know what I mean?
I love that you can see that. That is so cool.
I think it's so unique.
Shem and Seth are, from the polygamous group
out
in Moab, so that's awesome.
Yeah, he said he calls himself a pliglet. The pliglets.
I love it.
Like the kids, the kids from the polygamous communities, and so and I love it too. So when I look at this resort, when you were walking me through, I could see the framing and most of the stuff was kind of already built in. This is almost 2 months ago now. And you can see the vision, but you can also see like this uniqueness of design. It's like, this isn't something you're going to have seen before, right? There's going to be elements that you're like, oh, I'm familiar with what a golf simulator is and a lazy river, right? You say those things, but then you look at what it actually looks like when you put it down and you're in the physical space. It's just it's coming out of a perspective that's so unique, which is why I love it so much.
And it's so fun to be a part of the creation of it.
Yeah,
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and so you've never done a project of this scale before?
No, I'm just a hobbyist.
Just a hobbyist.
Yeah, so I hire professionals. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Hire people that are smarter than you, then it makes you look good, right?
Yeah, and you're just the organizer, right? You're just the visionary and the executor, but you're on site every day, right? It's not like
I live there.
You live there.
Live there.
You're doing the work on it. So maybe walk me through, if everybody's watching, if you're just listening on the podcast, this might be a good time to jump into the video version on YouTube. But so it's purely a resort.
So we have
At its
different
first stage.
zonings.
Okay,
Yeah, so we
different
have
zonings.
around 60 acres of resort zoning.
Okay, 60 acres of resort zoning, and Hurricane just like down the street from Sand Hollow Reservoir.
Oh, yeah. 7
Like-
minutes from the dock.
7 minutes from the dock. 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Is it
Yeah.
right? 7 minutes.
Dude.
You have
I was
the
born in 77.
77. 7's your lucky number. I was January 7th. There
So
we
my
go.
wife was
87.
my wife was the 11th child from her mom.
Oh yeah.
And I was the 11th child from my mom. So
Whoa.
that's magic.
Yeah, numbers are magic,
There we go.
right?
Yeah.
So you have the sand dunes are just right down the street, and in future phases you're going to have a road that kind of goes up to SR7, from what I understand, right? Or closer to maybe the main drag. I
Yes,
guess
so-
not all the way to SR7, but
In the States planning, Doppels, then they have a bike trail that goes along SR7 out to the airport, or I think it's to the freeway, but you have to look it up to know for sure.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But it comes right there to the south of our property, goes out through Dixie Springs.
So scroll down just one. You can kind of get the overlook on. This is the first. Is this first phase?
That's actually most of the resort area.
Most of the resort.
We have another 23 single family homes, but that's most of the resort area.
So this is just west of Sand Hollow, just north of SR7, just within the 7 minutes of all those things. It's tucked into a residential community, really, that's going to be all around it, and also this horse pasture, which is kind of, if you're looking at the photo, this big pasture that it kind of buds up against to, and a bunch of farms, right?
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
The Virgin
valley
River
is amazing.
The Virgin River cuts a canyon, just a couple minutes more down the street from
Seriously,
Turfside Road.
we ride our horses down there into the river, and it's magical.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. There's hiking trails all around, just right around the corner, but it's definitely tucked back. There's a hillside that kind of surrounds the south and a little bit of the north side of it, right? So it's set down into this, residential community, this big resort. You got a bunch of these units. It's gonna, if you're going there for a resort, it's gonna feel like you're on your own little island, kind of, right?
For reals, yeah. We kind of based it around just fun, like a cruise ship.
Yeah,
And we kind of want to even
cruise
have
ship's
some
a
of
great
that.
example.
We
Yeah.
want to kind of have that vibe as well, to where we'll have some kids activities that if the parents want to get out and have some private time or personal time, that we'd love to have some of that aspect. We want to create the experience for people. We'd love to have something like, if you want a date night, that we could have a Corvette in the garage.
Nice.
Or we have the ATV rentals there. We have e-bikes. Excuse me. And it's just going to be magical. It's so fun to see it just taking the different steps as we get there. We got the single family homes going and a bunch completed. One of them in there is 12,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's 18 bedrooms. Has two pools in the backyard, and there's a zip line on it, big slides.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
beautiful out
That's
there.
not your house.
No, it's right next to the one I'm living in right now.
Okay.
Because I'm living in one of the nightly homes.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 years, I want to build my Tony Stark mansion up in our estate lots.
Okay, nice, cool. I like it.
Dream big, right?
So on this map here, where are the single, because these look like all just townhomes.
Yeah, so it'd just be over here to the left is where the single family are.
Okay,
And
got
so
it.
I'm just kitty corner from that community building that we're building. We don't necessarily have a name for it yet. It's 90,000 square feet, and it's just right up against the city park right there.
So the rec center, you're talking about that rec center?
Yeah, we've been
indoor
calling it
pickleball?
rec center. Some people think that's the negativity to it, but it's going to have a lot of fun stuff in it. The first floor has 18-foot ceilings. And so right now the drawings are showing 13 pickleball courts and 2 racquetball courts in there with a food and beverage on that floor.
Wow.
And then the second floor, we want that to be about wellness. So have a spa, yoga studio, coffee shop, and a full gym.
So this is the clubhouse right here.
Yeah.
So do we have, maybe scroll down if there's rec center? It'd probably be labeled rec center, maybe. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
So this is
right
what you're
there.
talking about. You said how many pickleball courts?
And that's just such a simple rendering. Like
Yeah.
we have way better renderings now. So we have pickleball courts on the main floor. Second floor is about wellness. Like I said, spa, yoga studio, coffee shop, full gym. Third floor, we want that to be about fun.
Yeah.
So have a stage, dance floor, bar and restaurant, and then just any kind of fun we can fit in there, whether it's golf simulators, axe throwing. I don't know if we'll have archery stuff in there,
Yeah.
billiards. I don't know. We're still just throwing mud at the wall, and we'll see what sticks.
Yeah. Just and this is for the city of Hurricane, right? This is for
Anyone, yeah,
anybody in
could
the
come
community.
there and have a membership. And at this point, right now, we'll have the clubhouse and the water park open for that for business retreats. Like it's sitting on about 2 acres, and it's a really intimate water park.
Yeah, it
So
is.
we have a double air surf machine. The adult space is elevated.
There we go. The adult deck.
Yep, it's elevated above the rest of the park, so it's 5 feet above the rest of the park.
Yeah.
And so you have private cabanas out there on the island. There's a big stage that's going to be in there with a Teletron.
Yeah,
we're
back
gonna
there
be
in the
able to
corner,
have.
right? It's gonna be in the corner.
Yep, right up in the corner.
Yep.
This doesn't have the rendering.
That's
on
okay,
it,
but yeah, it'll be a stage up there.
Yeah, so we'll be able to have live music, DJ, karaoke from that space, movie night. And then you've got an action river, which can just be a lazy river. But then we can also turn on the action portion, which there's 12,000 pounds of water that can dump every 40 seconds. And then as it goes, it's down a straightaway. And then as it comes around the corner, we have a wave machine that throws waves down as it goes through the corners and you bounce around.
Oh my gosh.
So that's going to be really fun. And then we have the kids' water slide, which is really big. Like you have 8 water slides around that with buckets that dump and things that splash.
Yeah.
And then there's also a 4-lane racer on that. And then we'll have some other splash pad activities around that. There's over 10,000 square feet of rooftop deck. We have a 40-foot tower. The 2 water slides come out of that.
Yeah.
And there's
that,
hot
you took me up to the
tubs.
top. That's when I whacked my head on the low
you?
scaffolding.
Oh
Low
my
bridge,
God.
whacked it.
Dude, seriously.
No, but yeah, you get all the way to that top tower right there on the left hand of that corner right there. Yeah, and the slides come off that tower, right?
Yeah. Then we have a food and beverage up there.
Yeah.
We're looking to do a restaurant license over the whole property. So you'll be able to, if you purchase food, you'll be able to purchase drinks.
Dude, there's nothing like this for sure in Utah, right? But even maybe aside from the Strip in Vegas, there's nothing really like this out west, right?
This honestly, like the cruise ship, you've just created like a brick and mortar cruise ship, essentially.
Cool.
I think that's such a great way of describing it.
So you can go out and play on all the toys and then come back and just have a good time.
Yeah, you can sit down. You got the restaurant space upstairs, downstairs. There's 2 golf simulators downstairs.
A bunch of other arcade stuff we're putting in there. One of them, we've been going to different trade shows to just see all the new stuff.
Yeah, they put the big slide thing that was created. They put that in the Florida trade show.
Yeah, so I actually got to see it set
I don't know
up.
if you sent me that picture. That one, we got to put that one on in the description so people can check that one out.
Dude, let's do it. But one of the games that we really loved is called the Bot Boxer. And they use it to train professional boxers, but they set it up as a game. And the one we played, so I don't know everything it does yet, but the one we played, you box zombies.
Oh, yeah?
And all of us, like my daughter-in-law's mom, down to the younger kids, played this thing. And everybody got a great workout.
Yeah.
And it was so fun.
Is it like virtual reality?
I was going to say, Rogan was talking about a place that he takes his family to in Austin that's like that, but it's a VR room where you go kill a bunch of zombies.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fun. We tested out a bunch of VR stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see how our space works out in the rec center to put that in there.
Yeah.
Because one of the favorite VRs we had, they have the rooms that you all go into.
Yeah.
But the floor will vibrate. So when you get in the elevators and you're going up or different things happening, it feels pretty realistic.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So we're just looking at all that stuff. We try to see what we can fit in there and maximize our space.
Yeah.
And so we are stoked. Like you guys said, this is kind of like something on the Strip maybe.
Yeah.
We'll be able to have pool parties there. You'll be able to do business retreats. You could just rent the whole facility if you wanted to.
Yeah,
and,
man,
and have a couple hour party for just your whole team.
I was gonna pull up. So, how many units? So I think Guy Barlow, man, big shout out to Guy. This email he sent me with all the details is so good.
Dude, he's doing a great job.
He is doing a great job. His videos on Instagram, they're cracking me up. Like they mess up, they throw their little mistakes into it. Oh my gosh, they're so good. He's doing a great job, man. Okay, yeah. So there's 3-bed townhomes, 5-bed townhomes, 7-bed townhomes. They're ranging from the 700s all the way up to $1.4 million for those 7 bedrooms because they're vacation rentals, right? So they're gonna have it's buying into the resort as a a second home or investment property, whatever the way you're looking at it. But they range from 700 up to $1.4 million.
And just the way they're built, like you said, we have aluminum frame windows, all tempered glass.
Yeah, he was
tile throughout.
I think Gavin was telling me about how like the flooring, like what you've done with the flooring for sound, like eliminating the sound and the vibration, but being able to put tile like throughout the building on separate stories, like the construction. It's not, you can't just you can't go the DR Horton route where you're just going to put the exact minimum that you need.
Yeah,
in,
no, they're
right?
well done. Just because
Really well done.
rentals need to be durable,
Uh-huh.
and you want to protect your investment. It's got epoxy floors in the garage. We actually engineered the infrastructure for electric vehicles, so every home has a 50 amp circuit for your EV.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Just thinking forward for all those Californians and future electric drivers out there. Okay, so I can't find how many units.
So it's going to vary. We could have done like 400 plus units, and the half that we're working on right now, then we have 172 units, just because we added more bedrooms to units. And so I would guess the next phase might be similar. So we'll see how that goes. Right now I have
What's helping you make that decision? Are you thinking about it from just maximizing, what's the demand? Like what are people wanting? Or are you kind of
trying to look at both? Like, how does things pencil out? What's the demand? What are people going to like?
Yeah.
So I took and combined some of the 3-bedroom units on those units that we're building in the first phase right now, because each one of them have private backyards, but they have gates that can open up to connect the units.
Yeah.
And so if you had a big group, like 70 people in those 5 units, because they sleep 14 people apiece.
Yeah.
I think that's what the math came out to, is 70.
Yeah.
But you don't really have a big gathering space. And so I combined 2 of the units and really made a big gathering space on the end unit. So now it's a 4-plex instead of a 5.
Got it.
And it has 7 bedrooms in that one.
Yeah. And especially with all these big events that we have coming out in Hurricane, right? There's all these side-by-side festivals, the UTV tour, the side-by-side tour, off-roading, but then, soccer tournaments and baseball tournaments. And we have all these really massive group type events where these families, getting a hotel room is one way of doing it, but it's insanely expensive, and it's not the community feel with it. I look at this and I'm thinking about you growing up and this idea of, families getting together and collaborating and having, multiple families enjoy their experience when they go on vacation or when they go through these tours. And this is just so perfectly primed for exactly that, right?
It's well said. And it's so fun to see it. Like, that's exactly what the people use these houses for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's cool to see some of the reviews on one of the houses. Excuse me. On one of the houses, I actually kept it and I'm renting it. Then one of the guests, they asked my management company to please get this review to me.
Yeah.
And it was so fun to read.
Yeah.
They said their family had come together there and just how magical it was. They said they had more fun there than they did at Disneyland.
That's awesome.
And they had already rebooked it for October. And
you didn't even have any of the fun stuff yet.
Dude, not even yet, right? That's what's so cool.
That is awesome.
I really can't wait to get this done. We're just so close to COing our lobby and our game room.
Yeah.
So our golf simulators are going to be finished up next week. And it's just coming together, man. It's fun to see.
So when can I get on the lazy river? When do you think that thing's going to be
So we're
rolling?
thinking September, October.
Okay, perfect.
It's wild as we're trying to navigate the space. It's funny how different things get thrown into the cog.
Yeah.
Like trying to get your transformers or getting things approved through the city or the health department. Sometimes it just takes way longer than expected. And so you can put together a schedule.
Yeah.
But it's wild how sometimes it just gets shot out of the water.
Yeah.
But I feel like September and October is pretty realistic.
Yeah. So, man, Jeff, what else do you got? What other questions do you have for this? I mean, we can maybe take a couple of, walk them through maybe a couple of layouts, but really, if you're interested in wanting to know more about this, obviously reach out to us as real estate agents. We want to be able to take you through this and show you the different types of amenities. How many different kind of floor plans? The 3, 5, and the 7 bedrooms?
3, 4, 5, and 7.
Oh, 3, 4, 5, and 7.
And the first phase only has 1 5-bedroom. And then I believe there's only 5 7-bedrooms left.
And then 2-car garages attached to all of them.
Yes.
Right? So you can
EV chargers.
So you could put your toys in there.
You're selling these things then, Chris. It's not like, these aren't going to be available for a long time. These are going to sell out. Right?
I'm so happy with any of them that we've opened up, then we've got them under contract. Once I get CO on the clubhouse, I'll be able to get COs on the townhouses and close those out.
Yeah.
So we have 20.
I think 26 is what Guy.
Is that what he said? I was going to say 25, but
yeah,
I seriously had to talk to my team more often.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And it's not reservations. There's
Well, yeah, money down, meaning
big non-refundable money down.
Yeah, they put money down, and that's
so
reserving
these
their
people
ability to close out once they get the occupancy.
It's not like they're putting $5,000 down and they're like, yeah, we'll see where it goes. These guys are putting 50, 75, $100,000 down because they're like, hey, we want to be a part of this thing.
And it's so great to get that energy from our buyers of how much they love it. Like you said, there's a family that's from the baseball teams that come down. There's people that just love to get together with their family. And they are so excited to get their units.
Yeah.
And so it's going to happen the next 2 or 3 weeks, what it's looking like.
Yeah, that's going to be so great, man.
It's a big hurdle to get over.
We got to get a good band, maybe some of the bands from Hilldale and Colorado City. I know they put on a good music festival and have them kick off the whole event.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be so much fun, man. That'd be awesome. So looking at, this is just the first kind of phase, right? There's more property that you have to develop out there, right?
Absolutely.
And
so we're looking at different concepts, and we have these two things pretty dialed in as far as the rec center and the clubhouse with the water park. And now we're looking at, and I don't even know if I should mention what we got going in there.
Well, yeah, let's leave a teaser for the next time when you start to develop out that next that vision of that plan.
It's pretty rad.
That's gonna be cool, man. Well, okay, so man, this has been a great conversation. We're almost at 2 hours.
No way.
We're almost at 2 hours. So thanks for coming on.
It's been fun, man.
You have an amazing story, man. I could
Dude,
talk.
it was like a movie.
Was it?
When you were talking, I was so. This is what I tell my wife. These are the kind of movies that I can watch. The ones that, from like the first 5 seconds, entertain me the whole time.
Yeah,
that's how it was. I was sitting there with my eyes just thinking, this is the craziest story that led up to where we're at today. So I appreciate you kind of going through some of the crazy stuff because it was awesome.
Well, I think what I admire most out of that is your ability to roll with the punches, man. Like being able to stay singularly focused on your family and look down the road and truthfully with faith, right? With faith that things are going to work out well when you put good in, getting good out. There's some of these truths in the world, no matter what your belief is, right? Whether it's a specific religious belief or not, but this putting good in and getting good out, this is a product of that. And I admire the tenacity that you've shown, in a lot of those things, man. It's admirable for sure.
Dude, I appreciate that. And it's been such a great journey. And I owe so much of it to my wife.
Yeah, man.
She's been my ride or die, man.
She's solid.
We were in Alaska. And I can't remember when it was, but it was just last year or whatever. But when we were hiking, there were some people that said there was a bear right there by the trail where we're at. And I'm like, whoa, hey, if we ever got in a situation that we were in trouble with a bear, I want you to run and I'll just try to hold it off until, so you can get to safety. And she's like, dude, I'm not going anywhere.
I think the advice is don't run from bears.
Is that what it is?
Never run from bears.
Yeah, because she's like, I'm not going anywhere.
She's
man.
like, I'm going to fight it out. We're going to go out together. I love that, dude. I need to meet your wife. We need to have her come in here too.
Seriously.
Tell her side of this whole thing
She's
too.
amazing.
Okay, man. Well, let's wrap it up there. We hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Chris Wyler, thank you, man. This was a good episode.
It's been a pleasure. You guys just made it comfortable.
Thanks, man.
Take care.